Yo, everybody, what's good? It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. It's time for Flyers Talk A to D. Don't worry, Rob's coming back. A lot to talk about. We know there's rumors flying and swirling around Flyers with Rick Tocchet becoming the head coach, but not with nothing set in stone yet. We're going to continue to discuss. Maybe let's go a little bit more dark horse opportunity now. Who do you think under the radar could be a really good fit for the Flyers as a head coach? Let's get into that. We're talking dark horse. We're not talking favorites. We're talking dark horse, under the radar guys. We're also going to talk about the playoffs, give a little update going on that. A lot to talk about. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share button too if you haven't. Hit that retweet over on Twitch. It's time to talk some puck. Let's get at it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of A2D Radio's Flyers Talk A2D on a2dradio.com. Sounds a little bit redundant, but I'll get it down. And we are brought to you by none other than Specialized Physical Therapy, the Dr. Paul Vidal. Hit him up at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Make an appointment to either go to Burlington or Cherry Hill, New Jersey. If you got any aches and pains, the doc and his team will take care of that for you so you won't feel that pain and suffering anymore. I am Matt Sassuti, along with the Darkwing Brian Daly.
What up?
And Mr. Blue Shirt, Mr. Broadway, Mr. Switzerland, Big Bad Brad Ryer. And the poll question for today is: the Flyers will wind up hiring a dark horse candidate for the head coaching position. Agree or disagree? Obviously, as you alluded to, Bri, the rumor mill has been swirling up a storm with regards to one Rick Tocchet possibly becoming the next Flyers head coach. He would be yet another former Philadelphia Flyer to be behind the bench, joining the long illustrious line of Craig Berube, Paul Holmgren, and plenty of others off the top of my head that have been behind the bench to coach the Flyers in the past. So the question is, with all of the rumors and all of the hearsay about it, is there any truth to it? Do you agree? Do you believe that Tocchet will be the next Flyers head coach? Or is this all just orbital bobble? Are we really not talking the reality of the situation? Is it more like this is a sleight of hand? Flyers might be actually thinking about somebody else, and the rumors are just that. They're just rumors at the end of the day. Take the floor, gentlemen. How do you feel?
I mean, I hope it's all smoke and mirrors because I've been saying this for a couple of weeks. I don't think he's a good fit. I just don't. I like some of the other dark horse names that have been popping up. I like Pat Freshwheeler from University of Western Michigan, who just came off an NCAA Frozen Four championship. So let's go there. He's got another good relationship with Keith Jones. There was another guy brought up that had a really good relationship with Danny Briere, and that's Jay McKee, who is a coach in the juniors, which I think could be a really good coaching option. I mean, to answer the poll, do I think it's going to be a dark horse candidate? No, I don't. I think it's going to be one of the more popular names that's kind of floating around. And unfortunately, the more I'm hearing about it, the more people are talking about it. I do kind of think it's going to be Rick Tocchet. I do think he has a better option in maybe going to Pittsburgh or even Boston, as he's been linked to those teams as well. Personally, I think he should just sit down and just, take the cozy chair and stay with TNT. But I mean, the guy's got a love for coaching. I mean, he's a smart guy. He understands the game. I understand why some people would want him. I personally just don't think he's a fit. I don't think he has really what it takes to truly develop young talent. And I think he just doesn't take I just don't think he takes the opportunities that he has and really does anything with them. I mean, he's been a head coach 9 years. He's made the playoffs twice. That to me doesn't scream like this is a guy that we want right now. I'm going to get it, not a win now coach, but this just screams to me is like this. I don't want to necessarily say an issue, but I think he makes a better analyst than he does head coach in the NHL. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion, and it's okay if yours is different. It just means you're wrong. I'm just kidding.
So, besides Bry's power trip there, little update for everybody. Winnipeg just tied up the game between them and Dallas. Nikolai Ehlers with a goal that was a bit of an odd one. Ottinger had it, but he just didn't close his 5-hole up in time. And it popped off one of his pads and went in. So, American Loyalist who threw $1.99 our way, thank you very much, saying Peter Laviolette returned. No, he did not return to the Flyers. However, though, could that happen? I don't know about that. Again, Laviolette, I said before a couple.
Oh God, no.
He's the kind of coach that you get when you're ready to be in the playoffs consistently.
Oh God. No.
And there's even debate on whether or not that would be the option to go with anyway. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. And by the way, the one and only Broken One, Rob Povia, has officially joined us.
It's storming here in Mercer County, and all of a sudden, as soon as you hit go live, my internet cuts out. Like literally, it was like timed perfectly. Sorry, boys.
It's all right, brother.
Seattle was the other team, by the way, that's interested in Tocchet.
Interesting. Let's see here. Spoopy saying Van Ryn, another former player. Who did Van Ryn play for?
I don't know who he played for, but right now he's coaching under Berube in Toronto.
Right.
That might explain why no decision's been made yet.
I'll have to look that up later. But anyway, because that'll bother me. I don't know why. That'll just bother me. Anyway, Prism saying, I know he's got an offer from Seattle, but I wouldn't think that they would be viewed as a better position from a coach's standpoint. Greg saying, what up, fellas? What's up, Greg? That'll bother me. I don't know why, though. Priz saying, time for the Flyers to pull out all the stops and hire 91 years young Scotty Bowman. Let's see. Spoopy saying St. Louis and Florida. And then also Spoopy also saying New Jersey too, I think. And Greg also saying, disagree to the poll. I have a feeling that they're going to do the typical Flyers thing and hire Tocchet.
Yeah, that's what I do too, Greg.
So, I guess now it's time to shoot this one over to Robbie. You ready to answer, or do you want me to shoot it over to Brad?
No, it's cool, man. It's cool. I can fire it. I've been waiting all day, and I had to wait an extra 10 minutes too on top of it. But
how dare the weather do that to you?
Yeah, I know, right? I disagree. While I think there are names in consideration that people aren't talking about. You know, they are doing their due diligence. I just feel this organization wants to make a strong move with their head coaching hire coming off a year where the team took a step back as predicated by the front office and unceremoniously canned their coach with 9 games left in the season. You know, arrows are pointing towards Tocchet, and that would be that big move. He has experience in the NHL, but is it the kind of NHL experience that you want? I don't want it. I'd like to see Pat Ferschweiler get the job coming off a national championship. Danny B came out right at his end-of-year presser and echoed that communication and teaching are probably 2 things that will be the forefront of the next coach. Ferschweiler excels at both while having the pulse of the young player. Tocchet has none of that. Mm-hmm. I don't want any part of Tocchet. I think this would be yet better for the young blood. And we'll get into some other options as we discuss dark horses. But if you want to stick with or go with the guy that has NHL experience, I'd even prefer Jay Woodcroft over Rick Tocchet, or even retaining Brad Shaw. They're number 2 and 3 on my list.
Well, there you go. For Oh, and just so everybody knows, Mike Van Ryn played for the St. Louis Blues, the Florida Panthers, and the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, that's what Soupy was pointing out.
Ah,
I
gotcha,
think.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it. He said Van Ryn played for them. So, gentlemen, I guess now it's time to shoot it on over to Brad. So, Brad, from your perspective, do you agree or disagree that the Flyers will go the route of bringing in a former player?
I think, Rob, you stole my thunder there.
He handed it to me. I was willing to go last.
I did. I passed it to Robbie.
But for all the reasons Rob said, I kind of think Pat Swirl might be the right candidate for them. I mean, they'll probably go Tocchet because they always like to bring in their old players, and I would guess that he'd be the morning line favorite right now. But there is something to be said about the fact that they haven't brought somebody in yet, and that would kind of tell me that because they're still, the playoffs are still going on, they might be after some assistant that's in the playoffs right now that we may or may not know about, and they're waiting for whichever team it is, whichever coach it is, to either be eliminated or win the cup. I think that honestly, and it could. So I'm going to kind of agree that they're going to hire a dark horse candidate, someone that's not necessarily on their radar. Now, I can tell you right now, if the Canes blow the 3-1 lead, Brindamore might be here. Okay, but I don't think that that's going to happen. But I think that you're going to see an assistant from one of the teams that's still playing come over. That's just my opinion. I haven't read any rumors to that effect. I can't even name names, but I think there's a reason why they haven't already. Because if Tocchet was going to be the coach, he'd already be here, but be enough of the games and everything, and he'd already be here. So that's the whole point there. Tocchet could still do the be announcing and be on the pregame shows and postgame shows for the rest of the NHL playoffs. Nobody would stop him from doing that. It'd be just like remember when Keith Jones was first hired as president? He was still doing the games for a while until the season was over.
Yeah, he finished out with.
Yeah, that's. I mean, my only reason with maybe not Tocchet is because it would have been done already. There's nothing to hold Tocchet back, and why would they not have hired him already?
Great point.
It's just maybe it's somebody in Florida's under Paul Maurice's under his skill set, one of his associate coaches. It could be that could be the case. I think that's why nothing's been done yet, because I think they're just waiting for whoever it is they want to be free, and I think they probably have already contacted this supposed head coach, and they're just keeping it quiet because they don't want to mess up somebody's Stanley Cup hopes, or have unnecessary distractions. So they're probably keeping that quiet. But I think they probably already figured out who they want, and I don't think it's Tocchet.
Priz was saying Rand Pecknold, who is the head coach for Quinnipiac. He's been their head coach for a very long time, as a matter of fact.
That's nice.
So that would be a dark horse candidate if you could imagine. So Priz threw that out there. He says he's technically not available, so I'm guessing his contract isn't up with the school. But at the same time, if they were interested, I'm sure the Flyers could figure out a workaround. But that's if. He also said Joel Ward. Obviously, Joel Ward, former NHLer.
I mean, the guy that used to stand in front of the net all the time.
Yep.
Okay,
You might
remember him.
Might remember his very famous goal when he scored on the Bruins to eliminate them from the playoffs the year they were defending the cup.
Yeah, I remember him scoring quite a few goals against the Rangers in the playoffs too.
That too, of course, the very famous goalie duel between Lundqvist and Holtby. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Seeing a lot of good names in here.
There is.
Yeah,
Yes. No, thank you to Bausma.
yeah. Bosma's. I mean, the guy got canned after 1 year on a rebuilding team like that. I'm pretty sure that tells you everything you need to know about Bosma.
Mm-hmm.
You got to wonder what happened.
I mean, honestly, I think just I'll say this. I think Bausma is one of those guys where everyone got mesmerized by him at first, but it's like you forgot that it's like, yeah, he's coaching a team with Sidney Crosby in his prime and Evgeny Malkin in his prime. Yeah, they won a Stanley Cup not because of his coaching. They won the Stanley Cup because they lost the year prior in the Stanley Cup Finals. They wanted revenge on the same team they faced. So it's like, yeah, no shit, they won the fucking cup.
Well, he
But
was,
Yeah, and then they started to stink it up, and they had to fire him. And
Yeah,
bring
and they
in Sullivan.
I mean, he was also pretty much inherited that team. So
Yes.
he basically took over with Crosby, just entering his prime, Malkin. That team was just built to win a cup, and
Right.
he kind of just was, blessed to pretty much be handed that team. It's not like, when he went to Buffalo, he struggled. Why? Because he didn't have the best team in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Struggled in Seattle. Why? Because they don't have the best team in front of them. Granted, I don't necessarily blame Bylsma, but I mean, you got to be able to do something. I mean, Seattle went to the playoffs with a head coach that everybody in Philly thought was a scrub.
Yeah. Even though that same scrub also got them into the playoffs at one point too.
Right,
So,
and that's exactly my point. Like, Seattle's not a bad team. It's like it's the same thing to me with Rick Tocchet in Vancouver. He had that 1 year that he took Vancouver to the playoffs, which is great, awesome. You won the Jack Adams Trophy that year too. What happened the next year? Like, Vancouver's completely imploded.
it seems to be the norm for Vancouver. They had that 1 year back in the bubble where they finally did something in the playoffs. They went in and they dethroned St. Louis, and then they went on to be very strong in the second round, even though they got eliminated. And then the very next year, they were terrible. The year after that, they were terrible. And then they had this one-off with Tocchet, and they're back to being terrible. It's like, man, talk about a team that has no consistency. That's almost like the biggest fear I have for the Flyers. It's like, oh my God, please don't make us the next Vancouver. Because that would be a miserable fucking existence right there.
Don't be surprised to see Quinn Hughes traded and Elias Pettersson traded at some point in the next year or two. I can already tell you where Quinn Hughes is going to go.
Especially with Quinn Hughes.
Nah, Quinn's got one destination in mind. And I can tell you exactly where he's going to go.
New Jersey.
Bingo. He's going to go play with his brother.
Yeah, that's immediately what popped in my head.
3, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would be 3 Hugheses under one roof.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Cool. Let's blow up that roof.
Jack, Luke, and Hughes. Luke and Quinn. And I'll tell you what, Luke is pretty darn good too. From what I've seen of him, he's going to be a good one. May not be as good as Quinn, but I mean that's a lot to ask.
I'm trying to think, would that be the first time that 3 brothers were on the same team? Because all 3 of the Stahl brothers, they were never on the same team together. Because Mark Stahl played on the Rangers for the longest time.
Jordan was the one who never came to the Rangers.
Right, because he played for the Hurricanes after he left Pittsburgh.
Right.
And then
what about the Sutter brothers?
I was just about to say
Ron Rich and.
I think Ron and Rich, didn't they play on the same team? I think they played on. They played on the Flyers.
Didn't they all go to the Islanders?
They were all on the Islanders.
Dwayne was never with the Flyers, was he?
No, I don't think he was.
But I'm pretty sure Rich and Ron ended up on the Islanders at some point.
Okay. Interesting.
I could be wrong. I thought I remembered that happen. That's why I mentioned that.
Well, that'll be something we'll have to look up just for the hell of it. Lilia was saying 100% it's Tocchet. Swoopy's also saying bring Mike Keenan out of retirement as a joke. I would hope so as a joke because I don't think Mike Keenan would last 2 seconds here in the NHL.
Nope.
Mike Keenan doesn't want to coach of the NHL anymore. He's had enough.
Not in this age.
Yeah. Pris saying power play to Dallas, which they are about to. Winnipeg's about to kill off. American Loyalist also saying not for any of our teams. And then he also says the Stanzi brothers in
The
Quebec.
Stasnies. The
Stasnis. Yeah, the Stasnies.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes,
actually
they did. That's correct.
That's right. Actually, they're all three of them were
Yeah,
on the
Peter,
same team.
Anton, and Marion.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I know Brent and Dwayne already played both on the Islanders and the Blackhawks together. They practically were moved at the same time. No, it was a little later for Dwayne, but I mean, I'm sorry for Brent. So I don't know if one of the former Flyer Sutters and Rich or Ron, I'm going to look up, see if they had any time in the Islanders early on.
Brett and Dwayne I believe, were not on the Islanders at the same time.
Yes, they were.
Were they?
Yeah, look it up.
Brett's a lot younger, though. So
Yeah,
Brett
yeah.
came after that.
Let me check.
I mean, there were 7 of them.
Dwayne was from 79 to 87.
Oh, then he was there then.
Yeah. And
I think
Brent
Brett came in 86, if I'm not mistaken.
was 1980-81 was his rookie year with the Islanders till 91-92.
Brett Sutter?
No, Brent.
Oh, Brent. Okay.
Yes.
Brent, yeah. That's
Interesting. So it's fascinating when you see that kind of stuff.
I'm just looking at web pages, bro. So don't even give me credit at all. You know what I mean? Let's see here. Ron Sutter was a New York Islander in 94-95, but I think by then the other Sutters were in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so never 3. I don't think 3
Not at the same time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Interesting. So, all right. So the Sutters, and then obviously, so yeah. So I guess it would be the Stastnys would be the ones on the Nordiques, and then yeah. So the Hughes brothers could follow in those footsteps because, like we said before, the Stahl brothers were never on the same.
How many
team.
Plaguers were there?
Plaguers? Not
Were
sure.
there 2 or 3?
I thought there was 2 because I think there were 2 on the Blues when
that's what I thought there was another Plaguer too. I thought there was a third one, but maybe.
Let's see here. So Teddy's saying, do you guys want Marco Rossi? I heard Owen Tippett in a late first could get it done. They want
You don't even trade. You can make an offer sheet on him. He's a restricted free agent, Ted.
Mm-hmm. And it would cost about a first and a third, depending on what they wind up signing him for. But realistically, he's going to fall into the third tier category, and that'll probably get it done. And you just got to give up a first and a third to keep Tippett.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now they probably match, and if they match, I don't think if they're going to match in a way where they're committing money to a young talent in this league, and then I don't think you trade for them. I don't think they'll be willing to. But hey, you could always talk turkey then.
Mm-hmm. For sure, and at least with, I mean, I personally would not pass up Rossi if it came down to it. I think he does have the ability to play wing, which is nice. But, I mean, if we're going to go center, which I know they need, I'm going to try and find a bigger body than Marco Rossi.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. It's interesting, the whole Marco Rossi situation. It'd be interesting for the Flyers to look into that and see if they could get an offer sheet.
He's a nice player.
He is. Swoopy saying, obviously the Predators won't let Trotz leave GM. He wouldn't want to either.
Nah, he's done coaching.
I mean, the Predators, obviously, I think they have to take a step back here and evaluate a couple of things because they went all in and it was a disaster for them this particular season. Let's see. Well, yeah, I would say Marion was actually a Flyers draft pick, but he got voided, which is interesting. The Hanson brothers.
I'm listening to the fucking song.
Yeah.
I just love the fact that they would play with model toy cars in between games.
Yeah.
That was like my favorite thing. It's like, wow, that's what they do.
I
in their
think they
spare
stole that
time.
idea from Dave Schultz because I think he was the model airplane
Enthusiast.
enthusiast between in between games. He likes to build I thought I heard that somewhere.
It makes sense.
I think somebody had brought it up when the Rangers were playing the Flyers. One of the Rangers announcers brought it up, and then the analyst went and said, and he probably smashes them on somebody's head when they're playing.
Let's see here. Teddy's all saying Rossi and Mitchkov. That would be pretty cool to see. Pris saying if Dallas brings back Granlund, could offer shade Maverick Bork.
Could that would be a nice move for the Flyers too, because right now he's playing fourth line minutes and he's easily top end second line center at the highest. You can play third line. I like Maverick Bork. I like Maverick Bork. You could probably get him for $5 million a year too.
Interesting. I will. You know what's interesting? I looked it up. You know what's interesting here, boys? There were 3 Stahl brothers that played on the same team together, but it was for the Hurricanes in 2013. It wasn't Mark Stahl. It was Eric Jordan and Jared Stahl. Mm-hmm. So there was another brother the whole time, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it was 4. We were talking about it earlier today, actually.
And it's like totally like that meme where you have the 3, burly dragons, and then the one that's just like with his tongue hanging out.
That's basically what it was.
Like a little puppy dog.
Yeah.
That's funny. But let's see here. What else we got from the fam? Teddy saying, are you surprised how the Hurricanes are handling the Caps?
No,
not really.
Not at all.
I mean, the Capitals had a great season, and they won a President's Trophy, which you could argue is the kiss of death. But at the same time, I feel like we have to remember that this is still the Capitals. They're not the youngest team in the world. They had a great regular season. Not taking anything away from them. They have some young guys there, but it's still a lot of reliance on older players. And when you have that heavy reliance and then you're facing off with a team that's good at defense and everybody's offensive, it's like, you're asking for problems real quick, despite the fact that Carolina's goaltending still leaves a lot to be desired every now and again to some people's eyes. They're still a dangerous defensive team. So it's a hard team to go up against. They're a tough out.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina's got a lot of speed over Washington. Washington plays with a lot more physicality, but it's tough to keep up with Carolina and their speed when you're a little bit of
their transition game is off the charts good.
Mm-hmm.
It always has been. I mean, if you make a mistake against them, that's when they hit you with their speed and they end up getting breakaways and score, and they get odd man rushes. They're a very tough team to play against. Not the most exciting team in the league to watch, but I mean, they're very hard to beat.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up too, Maddie, when you brought up Priz's comment. Freddie Anderson has had a spectacular playoff for him.
So far, I'm still – everything's sus with him, so I'm just like, okay, so far he's been okay. I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for that moment he does it again, as he did it last year. So
that won't happen until they play Florida.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I did say this comment to a friend of mine at work. I said, you know what? Whoever wins between Toronto and Florida is representing the East. Do you guys agree with that, or do you think 100%. That there's? I feel like that's what's going to happen. I feel like that series is going to decide who wins the Prince of Wales this year.
I was responding to Swoopy's comment. Which team?
I was going to say whoever wins between Florida and Toronto, I feel like they're the ones representing the East.
No, I agree with Florida. If Florida wins that series, I think they're going to wind up repping the East. I don't think Toronto does. I just don't see Toronto being deep enough to be able to handle a team like Washington or Carolina. I think they have the speed, The thing with me is I don't think Toronto can match up with the physicality that Washington will bring. I think they can kind of compete with the speed, but I think Carolina has more depth and they can get more depth scoring than Toronto can. Toronto's leaning heavily on some of their bigger cats. Matthew Nyes has been just unreal throughout this entire playoff run. But in order for Washington to be able to get past either team, they got to get Ovi going. Ovi has 0 points in this entire series so far.
Didn't he score a goal in the last game? Or no, that was 2 games ago.
I don't think so. I can double check.
It was a power play. He scored on the power play, I think.
Well, still, even if he scored one
goal, though,
it's only
enough.
one. Yeah. And again, Washington's heavily reliant on Ovechkin and Oshie and a lot of the veteran players that they have.
Carolina's just shutting them down. And you know what? They play Toronto, they're going to shut their butts down too. Florida is the one team. There's the one team that can play. They can play the same kind of hockey as Carolina, and they're a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and and the dirty hockey that they play, they get under your skin and they can very easily get you off your game. So
no, you're right. He did have a goal. He had a goal in the last game. He had a power play goal.
Yeah,
but one point in the series the series is long from over.
Lily, was saying, not a big Tocchet fan, but he will bring the meaning of being a Flyer back. This team is painfully irrelevant.
Didn't Tocchet say the same, or not Tocchet? Didn't Tortorella say the same thing?
I mean,
did he actually say he's going to bring back the meaning of what being a Flyer is?
That's the thing. Like, again, it's like Tocchet, Tocchet like Torts, hard-nosed kind of person. Tocchet was a hard-nosed player back in the day. So, again, it's like bringing back the meaning of being a Flyer. I don't know if that's necessarily the main goal for Tocchet in going into that locker room. I think what the main goal would be is let's find some consistency, because that's what we've been lacking. Like, we will have very inconsistent stretches, and I understand a rebuilding team, you're going to be inconsistent at certain things. But certain things like the power play just being miserably god-awful every year, being dead last in the league. It's like, that's something that really, I don't care if you're a rebuilding team or not. It's like, there's no excuse. It's like, at some point, you got to get that going.
He has never had a team that had a great power play other than that Tampa Bay team that won the cup. But I mean, when he was a Ranger coach, he never none of the Rangers never had a good power play. With back in the days with Callahan and Dubinsky and Gabrick and those guys, and then later Nash, they never really had a good power play.
Which is weird, because when you think about it, it's like those kind of players you would think would find a way to score on the power play, especially somebody like Rick Nash.
Yeah, they never, for whatever reason, that was one of the reasons why they got rid of him and they brought in Vigneault, because Vigneault was actually good at the power play, and he liked the headman pass, and they would get a lot of breakaways just because of the speed,
Swoopy saying, no, Rod Brendamore would. He's the only guy and former Flyer I want to coach them. Every other former Flyer, stay away from.
Right. And if your goal is to make over this power play and you want to go with a dark horse, I don't think it's going to happen. But I think a good dark horse would be Jeff Halpern, right? He's a rising assistant with a championship pedigree, coming off 2 Stanley Cup rings over 7 seasons with the Lightning. He's been a power play specialist. Tampa Bay has had the second best power play since 2018-19 at 25.5%. So I think that would be a little helpful.
That definitely would bring in that kind of mentality.
Speaking of Tampa Bay, what about John Cooper? Is he going to walk away, or is he going to come back? I've heard rumors that he might walk.
Oh, Dallas just scored and made it 2-1.
I think until that team becomes irrelevant completely, I think he stays.
Let me see. Who just scored that? That
I'm just throwing
went
it out
to
there because
Grandland.
I've heard the same kind of things with him as we did with Sullivan before he left. That's why I'm wondering.
I mean, again, they want a teacher. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And can you describe Cooper as a teacher of this game, or is he a guy you would get when you're ready, when you got everything in place and you're ready to rock and
Well,
roll?
how was Tampa Bay when he first took over?
Yeah, they were young.
Yeah, he took over that team when they were young. They were a bunch of puppies on that team,
Mm-hmm.
and he got them together. I mean, it took them a while to get over the hump. They had a lot of ups. They lost a lot of bad series like Toronto has. Speaking of Toronto, but and then they finally got over the stupidity and won 2 in a row. So
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
The one thing though that I will say that didn't mean to interrupt you there, Bry. But the one thing I will say though, and this is how I feel about the difference between like say a team like Tampa that went on to have a dynasty, or argue not necessarily a dynasty, but went on to repeat, and then got to several finals. The one thing that I think was a little different with them was that they had gotten to a finals ahead of schedule. They got in there in 2015 when they were not ready. Don't get me wrong, it was an impressive run and they deserved that run, but then they faced Chicago and it was like, yep, there's the difference right there. You're facing a team that was bound to win the Stanley Cup and you're facing a team that's got a big, bright future ahead of it, but it just wasn't this year at the end of the
I
day.
mean, with Tampa too, they were in a situation where they were ready to come out anyway. They had all their key pieces in place. Hedman was in place. Stammer was there. They had a couple other key pieces there. Vasilevsky took over in net.
Right.
All the pieces were in place for
Tyler
when
Johnson.
John Cooper took
Tyler
over.
Johnson was a hell of a player back then too.
He just fell off a cliff. But Yanni Gord, Alex Killorn, there was all these good young pieces in place, ready to go for when Cooper took over. And
Was
Cooper
Point part
just,
of that, or
again,
was that later?
who?
Point.
Braden Point.
He was later, but
He was-
I
okay.
mean, still, they
Yeah,
had
but they
that.
developed him. But he developed him too. I mean, he developed a lot of good young players.
Yeah, but I mean, Yzerman did a very good job building that team, though.
Oh, no question.
And he just put the right pieces in place at the right time.
No question. But Cooper, what his highest skill of organized hockey was? He was a high school player. He couldn't even make a college team as a player. He's just, he's one of those hockey nerds that knew everything to know about making plays and all that other stuff, and he taught it to the players, and the rest is history. If they could ever get a guy like him, that would be great. But I'm just wondering, when does the rent come due with Tampa Bay the way it's come due with Pittsburgh?
Well, I think we're seeing a little bit, not a heavy decline, but I think they're on that decline a little bit, primarily due to salary cap constraints. They've had to let players leave to go accept contracts in other spots. Obviously, Stamkos is now no longer there. So that was your captain. So that's a big loss for that team. So, I mean,
Getsel kind of made up for it, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like you could tell that this is a team that's the glory days have kind of passed them by a little bit. I can't say that they're dead in the water, but you could tell that's like, okay, maybe their cup winning days are over. Washington went through the same thing. They won the cup in 2018 and then
out in the first round and then not making the playoffs.
The following year, after 2018, they had a shot, but then they coughed up that 7-game series to Carolina in a shocking victory. Justin Williams had his effect. But at the end of the day, then that decline started to show. Because then the bubble, they got completely smoked by the Islanders. And then in the next year, they were killed by Boston. It's like you could tell that they were going down. It was only a matter of time. And then they got killed by
Toronto.
Right. So it was like it was a matter of time before Washington got there. I feel like Tampa's kind of on that course right now. Only difference is their main star player is now no longer there. So that's the only difference. Ovechkin was always going to be there for the Capitals.
Yeah. And I mean, it's nice when you have that staple And I thought that staple for Tampa was going to be Stamkos.
Had
It's not,
been.
but I mean, it's just kind of.
Kucherov is a fabulous player.
Oh, he
Mhm.
is. He is.
Yeah, it's just, you know,
I guess as long as
you
he's
got
there,
to.
Cooper stays, right?
I mean, as long as they stay relevant, Cooper's going to stay.
So let's see here. LJ saying Tocchet played for the Flyers, knew what it meant to put the jersey on. Torts never did. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to
It's true.
transition to. And I'm not, and nothing against that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to project the Flyers up to a higher standard. You know, you could wear any jersey. Doesn't really matter. I mean, there's been plenty of guys who never wore a jersey of a team, and they helped elevate that franchise to newer heights at the end of the day. Teddy's saying, painfully relevant, big question marks across that. We got Michkov as a Russian superstar, and we're not Florida Panthers, but we're headed on the right track.
Speaking of Michkov, too, I keep on seeing some Facebook posts, so hold it with a grain of salt, but apparently he was in a car accident in Dubai.
He was. Yep, it was a Russian reporter who put that out there. He was not driving. It was a car that was put in his name. He had somebody driving him. He got hit essentially kind of head on passenger side. But from all the reports that I'm seeing, he's fine. No injuries.
Okay. Jesus. If there's one thing that this franchise could ill afford, it's another tragedy involving a car. We already lost a franchise goaltender, because of that reason. The last thing you need to do is to lose a young superstar.
Damage of the car that I've seen in the picture is not crazy.
Okay.
And I will say this: there does look like there's the crack in the windshield that's spiderwebbed. It does look like it could be a placement of somebody's head, but I can promise you it wasn't. It was the airbag because the airbag was deployed.
Okay. That's good news. Thank God. Last thing we need was that. Chris saying Yzerman hasn't had the same touch in Detroit at all. No.
Well, I don't want to necessarily say that he hasn't had the same touch. He's brought in some talent. He's holding. I mean, Priz, I'm sure you saw my comment. I don't know why, but he seems to be holding himself back with Detroit, and I don't know why.
I will say this though, and this is just I've got no basis on this except for perception. Could be wrong, but it's an original six team. Yes, he captained that team for a long time, and they won Stanley Cups with him. However, when you get in that front office, you have to play politics a lot more than you necessarily do as a player. When you're a player, there might be politics in the locker room, but it's different compared to when you get into that front office. It's a whole different ball game. And so the problem is it's like you're leaving a team in Tampa where I'm going to assume you got a little bit more free reign. The fans aren't breathing down your neck every 5 minutes about, hey, when are we going to be relevant again? When you leave that environment where you kind of got the ability to build what you want to build and not have to question, someone's not breathing down your neck, questioning every single move you make. When you change that and you're going to original six territory, or you're going to, say, Philly territory or Pittsburgh territory or another team that's pretty high up there, that's a whole different story to tell because the fan base is going to be a lot harder to deal with, and Detroit's not going to be an easy fan base to please. And then on top of it, you're also going to have to deal with the corporate politics. The owners are probably going to be very much, very heavy on watching you and seeing everything you do. That's the one big negative about changing from the smaller teams that are kind of forgotten about. I'm not saying Tampa's forgotten about, but you get what I'm saying. Going to the original six squad, that's a big culture shock right there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Yzerman's holding himself back, because maybe he's getting scrutinized a lot more in Detroit than he ever was in Tampa. Maybe he was allowed to flourish more. I have no hard evidence to back that up. This is all theory, but there might be some relevance to it.
My theory is that they've got to get a goalie, a really good goalie.
Well, they definitely need to do that, but
they don't even have. I know they got a young guy who they're hoping becomes the guy. But I mean that's what's been holding them back the last couple of years. Their goaltending has been awful the last couple of years.
It's because they keep bringing in these Band-Aid guys like Alex Lyon. They need to let Sebastian Costa take the reins.
Right.
Yeah, well, and Huso and I mean right on down the line. I mean, they've had.
Fortunately, Huso found his way to Anaheim.
So, oh, you
Sorry,
sound
I
so
forgot about
broken up
that.
about it.
Thankfully, I don't think he played more than a handful of games.
But I mean, again, it could just be where they're playing with kid gloves with caution. It may just be that. Maybe they just don't feel
Gotta take them
comfortable
off.
putting him in there. I know at some point you do have to kind of give him the shot. I mean, unforeseen circumstances pretty much cost the Flyers Carter Hart, who was, by the way, I think Robbie said it. I think he was cleared of all the charges. That's from what I saw.
That's not what I've been hearing.
I saw something. It was online, so take it with a grain of salt. But I heard
Depends on who it's
someone
coming
say it.
from.
Yeah.
Because there have been reports out there, and they've released some of the text messages and stuff like that. He was one of the first guys there when McLeod texted to see if anybody wanted to jump in a threesome.
Interesting. Well, still, either way, though, unforeseen circumstances, the Flyers lost Hart, but there is one thing to take from this example. They did put Hart out there when the time came. Yes, it was out of desperation, but when he stepped into the role, it seemed like he was comfortable. So maybe the same thing will happen with Kasha in Detroit. Give him a shot. At this point, let him take the reins. Let him see if he can handle it. And what's the worst that could happen? You take him and put him back into the minors. Is that the worst thing that could possibly happen? It's like, go ahead.
The problem is they've got a lot of now guys on that team.
They do.
I mean, they've been, all these young players that they've been getting over the years. They're now not so young anymore. I mean, Dylan Larkin is not a kid anymore.
No, he's not.
He is by far their best player.
He's only 28.
Guys like Patrick Kane, and I mean, what are we looking at there? Until they actually get that goaltending situation solid, and somebody is galvanized enough to get out there and win Detroit some games when their defense takes the night off. They're just not good. They can't. Montreal and Ottawa have already passed them.
Well,
and that's a problem. That's a real problem now with that team.
Detroit's not really that old. Dylan Larkin, how old do you think Dylan Larkin actually is?
Probably 27 at this point, 28.
Yeah, 28. That's not old by any stretch. That's a dude that's in his prime. Like I said, this team is not doing anything more than just holding themselves back by not letting Sebastian Costa take it over. And you still have Trey Augustine in the wings too. So Detroit is pretty much there. Yzerman needs to wise up and take the kid gloves off Casa. Let him go. If you want to hold on to one of the guys, you want to hold on to Alex Lyon for a backup and kind of to help mold him. Okay, cool, fine. But Casa has to be the starter. Trey Augustine needs to sign his ELC and he needs to get under contract and he needs to get developing. If they want to be the team that they think they are and the team that they're built to be up front, and they need to shore up some question marks on defense too. But I mean, this team isn't far out from being a playoff team. They just
correct me if I'm wrong. They have the best power play of the league this year. Correct?
Oh, that I don't know.
I think they were the number one power play in the league, if I'm not mistaken.
Who?
Detroit.
I think Edmonton was number one.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure?
Detroit probably top five.
They're definitely top five. I know that. I thought for a long time they were number one for a long time.
Well, while we look that up, Teddy's saying having a loaded roster is pretty important. You can have the greatest coach. If you lack talent, you're going nowheres.
That's true.
Per se about us.
No, you know what? I was thinking I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was thinking Edmonton was number one last year. Winnipeg Jets were number one. Golden Knights 2, Devils 3, Red Wings 4.
Okay, they went down a little bit. They were at one point. I know I was watching one of their games, in February when I was in Boston at my sister's daughter's wedding, my niece's wedding, I should say. And I was watching Detroit blow a lead in the last 8 minutes of the game that they had a three-goal lead in. And they had mentioned the fact that Detroit, had the number one power play in the league. I didn't realize they fell down a little bit, but still top five. They still have very good power play. It's
and ahead of Tampa Bay, who had a great power play.
Yeah, and because their defense was shaky and they had lousy goaltending, that's kind of what happened there.
Teddy's saying, question for Bry. What do you think about Coach Q? Can he turn you guys into a playoff team this year?
Yeah, there's no question about it. His pedigree as a coach is, in this era, is second to none. I mean, there's going to be some baggage that's going to come with it for now, but the organization did their due diligence when going through the coaching process. They talked to Quenneville. They talked to Kyle Beach. Quenneville did what things that he wasn't even asked to do in his time off in the last 4 years, where he went to sensitivity classes and stuff like that. He would talk to Kyle Beach on a regular. Like, they developed a pretty good relationship with each other. And before they made the hiring, Anaheim reached out and said, "Hey, would you be okay if we hired this guy?" He gave him the green light. If Kyle Beach didn't give him the green light, I don't think we see Quenneville here. But, I mean, they did their due diligence. I think they have the young talent to continue to build. I mean, they started to play really well under Greg Cronin on the last couple months of the year. I think playing under a guy like Joe Quenneville is going to be awesome for them. And, it says a lot when a lot of your players are sitting in the crowd for the press conference, and the one star that everybody's not sure of his future with the team puts in his Instagram that he's welcoming Joel Quenneville to the flock in Trevor Zegras. I think that says a lot about where this team is going to be heading for next year.
Let's see here. Swoopy saying, who's the former coach of Montreal? Isn't he available? Claude Julien?
No, don't want him.
Nope.
Priz also saying they got to either get Casa up in the league or make a move for someone like Caden Primo and then draft another goalie. Would Montreal give up Primo?
They got Monteblone.
I mean,
yeah,
possibly.
But I don't know. It just that'd be interesting.
That guy was really good. So
he was, but I don't know. It's just like you want to be careful when you start trading away young players. I was saying, been a Flyers fan since '76, and the interest is at the all-time low by far. Well, it's hard to watch when the team is rebuilding. Obviously, it's that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately,
a team that led the league the first 2/3 of the season in terms of transition offense, that's not interesting at all.
I mean, I get that it's tough when the team has been going through the valley, which it's going through right now, but it's trying to rise itself back up. It just takes a little while.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to a lot of the fans. I can definitely understand that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be frustrating. Yeah.
I'm not belittling frustration. I just like to make jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. Priz saying, wish he was back in Chicago, but for obvious reasons that wasn't an option. But I'm thrilled for him and McTavish. I guess he was talking about. Who was he talking about?
Quenneville.
Quenneville. Okay, that's who he was talking about. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, a fresh start, West Coast, far away from Chicago. Get a nice tan. He'll look like John Davidson after becoming an executive.
Love it.
Franchise goalie. It wasn't Julian. Franchise goalie.
No, he went on. It was in response to something you said, referring to someone as a franchise goalie. Because I knew when he first wrote that other question, I answered Claude Julien, and I too was not interested. And then I was like, please, not Michel Therrien. He's already been here.
True.
Patrick Roy. Is that who he's talking about?
It was somebody Maddie referenced as a franchise goalie earlier on in the show.
Oh, no, he
was
didn't.
asking
Price?
about it.
I didn't remember saying Carey Price at any point.
No.
I mean, he was a franchise goalie, but
Oh,
no,
yeah, he was.
Moving on.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'm drawing a blank right now, Swoopy. I'm sorry.
It wasn't Dustin Tokarski, was it?
Definitely
Freddie
not
Anderson.
him. Freddie Anderson.
Playing like it right now.
He is.
Fins of 13 saying, remember Roger Nielsen? My favorite fighter for the Flyers was Dan Kordick.
Yeah, yeah. I love his ties, man. He always had the best ties behind the bench.
Yeah, he did.
R.I.P. R.I.P.
Yeah, very much. He was very innovative.
He was like a professor back there.
He was a very innovative coach.
He was really smart. He was extremely smart.
So a couple funny things. Did you guys? I don't know if you guys have heard this story. Do you know how he got fired by Toronto? He got fired on live television by Harold Ballard at a press conference on television. Hired him back because the guy he wanted to replace him with was terrible, and then said, "We'll hire you back, but can you wear a bag over your head?" Actually said that to him, and Nilsson just took a job in Vancouver and told him to kick rocks. And then there was another story where he was the first guy to pull the goalie, and everyone was wondering, why did you do that, and why'd you put another player on the ice? Is it because the rule book says you can only have 6 players on the ice, 5 skaters and the goalie, but no one ever said that if you take the goalie out, you can't put another skater on. And the rule book never said that, so that's how he got away with it at the end of the day. So you could thank him for why empty netters exist.
I didn't know he was the innovator of that. That's awesome.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy with the stuff that he would pull. Unfortunately, when he came to the Flyers, he had a heart condition. So I was like, ooh. So poor guy didn't get really a chance.
That's probably from coaching the Rangers.
Yeah, that's true. He was coaching
and
the Rangers
having to coach Messier, and then Messier was coaching him back.
Right.
That was horrible. And then he called Messier Coach Messier, and that's when I can't remember who the GM was back then, but that's when they even say there. That's when they had enough and they got rid of him. Let's all listen to Coach Messier. He said that in practice. Bad move. Bad move.
Very bad move.
Yeah.
First saying, bring up Casa and trade for Primo. Habs got a backlog of solid young goalies. Well, if they got a backlog, then okay. And then what was a couple other comments here? So we're saying you said franchise goalie after the car accident. Oh yeah, Lindbergh. Lindbergh died in the car accident.
Lindbergh.
Yeah,
Okay, we didn't need another car. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
that's what he meant. Okay. Yeah.
Lindbergh.
Because I mean, hey, if Lindbergh had lived, who knows? I mean, many have theorized that maybe the Flyers beat the Oilers in '87. That's debatable. Nothing against what Lindbergh could do as a goalie, but '87 Oilers was still. That was prime Edmonton Oilers. The fact the Flyers took them to 7 games, that tells you how good that Flyers team was, too.
Yeah.
And no car accident, you still have Pelle Lindbergh. Do you not have Ron Hextall?
No, I don't think you do.
Wow.
Because Lindbergh would have been the goalie. So I think Hexie would have either he would have never had a shot in the NHL or he would have gone to another franchise and would have been a player for them.
I'd like to see that flashpoint.
Could you imagine?
Wow.
You know what? I bet you he would have been in Washington or something like that. Could you imagine that? Him being like the fiery goaltender for the Capitals? Because I could see that happening. Because back then, that was how it went. You traded in your division all the freaking time back then.
Hey, man, with AI, anything's possible now.
Right. It's a terrifying thought, though. I wouldn't want to put that into the AI imagery. But it's bad enough that Hexie played for the Nordiques and the Islanders. But anyway. And yes, I do apologize to those franchises. He did not play well for them. Anyway, so
especially for the Islanders.
no.
He was bad when he was with the Islanders.
So let's see here. So gentlemen, we're talking about the Flyers coaching choices and options and Tocchet and what have you. My question is, at this point where the Flyers are at, we know we want a coach that can help with the young players and everything, but do we want a coach that we feel like is going to be here a long time? Or do you feel like we can still feel comfortable with a short-term coach and then transition to the coach that's going to be here for when the Flyers are a more consistent playoff team? How do you feel the approach should be for Danny? Do you feel like long-term or short-term right now?
I think it depends on how it goes. It depends on how the development goes, how the consistency goes. I mean, you don't want to lock into somebody long-term, but you also don't want to lock into somebody short-term. But obviously you want to move on coaching based off of whatever the results wind up being. Obviously, we're not looking at win-loss with where they are, but if they're showing signs of consistency where the power play percentage is up, the penalty kill percentage is up, and, they're playing pretty strong 5-on-5. The team is improved from year to year. Yeah, you lock in on a coach. I mean, that's what you don't want to sit there and be like, all right, well, we're going to sign a coach for 2 years and then we're going to move on. That doesn't set a very good precedent. I mean, yeah, we saw Craig Cronin fired after 2 years. We saw Dan Bosma fired after 1 year. We're seeing some of these coaches, they're not lasting long, but the coaches that are having success are staying behind their benches long term. So if the results are there and they're positive and they maintain that positive consistency, yeah, you go long term. You go as long term before the coach loses the locker room or, they fall out of relevancy again. But like I said, you don't really want to lock in on a set number. You just, in this specific situation, you just have to go by how the team's doing.
Okay.
Anybody think about David Quinn? He's a guy that's coached a lot of young players.
I just think there's better options right now.
Okay. No, I'm just, because I know he's had some experience with younger players and Team USA with the young players and everything. I know he wasn't real successful with the Rangers, but he did bring along some of those young players.
True.
To a point where they brought in Gallant to take them to the next level.
True, but I just think there's other guys that are working, say, on the junior level, like Jay McKee. He coaches in the OHL.
Yeah, I mentioned him last week, remember?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Robbie, what were you saying?
I'm done.
All right. I would say at this particular juncture, when it comes to this, obviously long term definitely is a good thing. One thing I want to say that I feel like we haven't seen in Philly is, and this is just my opinion, I don't think we've ever seen the coach really take the team from being just starting out, developing young guys, and pushing them into that stratosphere where they take that huge step to the next level. That's just my opinion. I don't think we've seen it in Philly since Shiro. I mean, because when you really think about it, it's like Shiro kind of molded the bullies and they went off and did their thing. Obviously, it was a different league back then, different structure, different draft, different everything. Different rules, too. But ever since then, I kind of feel like it's not been the same in terms of like taking a coach from, okay, this is a group of guys that I've got. I'm going to mold them into something and we're going to take it to the next level. And we're going to get there. And the coach stays for a long time and does it. Okay, yeah, all right. Mike Keenan, that is true. Keenan was here for a long time, and that was a young team that he inherited. So, okay, we haven't seen it since Keenan. So it's been a lot. It's been a long time since we've seen a coach be able to do that with the Flyers. I don't know. It's just that's why I asked that question, because I feel like we haven't seen it for a very long time here in Philly. I mean, look back at the last superstars we've had, Giroux and Lindros. How many coaches have they had in their time in Philly? Like almost double digits sometimes. It got up there pretty high. So I don't know. It's just something to think about. It's like maybe that's what we ultimately need. Maybe we need that coach. That's the problem. We're missing that coach. You know, it could be that. It could be that. But either way, it'll be an interesting offseason for Danny and for the Flyers as a whole. And there's a lot of tough decisions to be made, a lot of important decisions to be made. And it'll be very, very interesting. We'll see if maybe they find that guy. Is Tocchet the one? There's a lot of debate. Maybe he's not. Maybe somebody else will be a better option. Who knows? But we are officially up against it. So we thank everybody out there for joining us for this edition of Flyers Talk A2D. We hope that everybody out there had enjoyed the show. For all of our regulars out there, for the new ones, hit the like, subscribe, hit the bell so that way you get all the notifications around here. And well, so far it's still 2-1 Dallas. We'll see if that holds as the third period goes along. And next week we'll be back. We'll see if the Flyers have shored up the coaching situation with Tocchet, or maybe they've gone in a whole other direction. We'll keep you posted on that, and we'll be here to talk about it. But until then, everyone stay safe, stay healthy out there. From all of us here at a2dradio.com, peace and love, everyone.